I'm Carol Taylor. On this edition of Journal, I want to take a close look at the crime and disorder in our streets. I've lived in downtown Vancouver for more than 20 years, and the changes that have happened are enormous, but they're not all good. Along with some beautiful developments in public spaces, has come a decreasing sense of community and safety. I used to walk with abandon to events and meetings without giving it a thought. But we all know, especially in the last couple of years, how that has changed, and not just in Vancouver, but around the province. At one point, police were reporting unprovoked stranger attacks of 4 per day, pedestrians being assaulted, yelled at, chased, threatened, pushed. And of course, open drug use in public spaces has exacerbated the feeling of insecurity for many families. Now that the federal government has acceded to Premier Eby's request to recriminalize the public use of drugs, we'll see if that changes. But for our social services, police, firefighters, paramedics, the challenges remain daunting as repeat offenders and drug overdoses, it just swamps the system. To get a better understanding of exactly what's happening on our streets and what we as individuals can do about it, I am joined by Inspector Colleen Yee of the Vancouver Police Department, who founded, along with her sister Alice, another police officer, an initiative called Women's Personal Safety Team. This is a program I personally support. Back in a moment to assess the current situation and then explore what Colleen's team of women police officers are doing to support others. Inspector Colleen Yee has been with the Vancouver Police Force for now more than 30 years. And I imagine, Colleen, when you think about it and you see the changes, both in society but also in the police force and the interaction and the issues, quite a difference. Like, you just look back 10 years and compare work on the street then and work on the street now.
In the last decade, it seems things have gotten more complicated in policing than it was 10 years ago. I'll break it down to like 3 major sections, and if you have any questions around that, we can sort of explore that. So just strictly from an administrative point of view regarding paperwork, it takes us so much longer now to go to a call, take the call, go back to the office or to our cars and put the paperwork out so that we can get back on the street. So officer time on the road is significantly less versus 10 years ago when we could go in, make an arrest, say it's a warrant arrest. That warrant arrest would take me 45 minutes to write up. Now, with all of the demands that the administrative process requires, that 45 minutes has now turned into an hour and a half. So we're off the road for that much of time with a simple call. Never mind if we arrest somebody and there are charges and we have to compose a report to Crown Counsel. Again, those reports used to take us maybe an hour and a half, 2 hours if it was relatively complicated. And now we're having members off the road 3-4 hours sometimes for the same type of call. And again, because of the requirements that the courts have now of police officers in regards to the templates we have to fill out, the statements, all those kind of things.
What about police safety on the streets? I was talking in the intro about community safety, but what about police safety?
That bleeds into police safety in the sense that now you've taken more police officers off the road, and the police officers who are remaining on the road have to respond to priority 1 calls, sometimes with cover that would take longer to attend and help out. Police officers also, when I first got on the job, and even 10 years ago, we found that violence against police officers was not as common. We have seen a rise in assaults against police officers, especially during COVID and then during the defund the police movement years. And that creates a lot of, again, trepidation for members on the road. It affects their sense of safety, which then affects their mental health, their productivity, service, and ability to support the communities that they work in.
Some of these things, of course, are beyond your control. You mentioned COVID, but also when there was the anti-Asia feeling and a lot of racism going on, and then recently, of course, with the Gaza situation. So these things come at you if you can do nothing about it as police officers except react and try to be responsive to the situation.
What we try to do, like when you said with COVID, we saw, and again, people are aware because it was so well advertised, or the public was made quite aware of it, 700+% increase in Asian-related hate crimes. With the Gaza, the Hamas-Israeli conflict, we've seen over 60% increase in anti-Semitic related hate crimes. As police officers, in part, we respond to these calls, but we also know that there is a preventative part, a public education part, where if we deliver that properly, we hope to mitigate that sharp increase in these incidents.
What do you think is behind this feeling of the community insecurity, the stranger attacks?
You stated earlier, at one point, the city of Vancouver was seeing 4 stranger attacks a day. That meant 4 people going about their business getting attacked. That in itself, the rate of that is alarming already. However, what precipitates off of that is now it contributes to the actual sense of safety and the perception of their sense of safety, all of which goes down because everyone can imagine themselves walking down the street, minding their own business, and out of the blue getting attacked. Watching how our neighborhoods are not so readily wanting to engage in community interaction, creating that sense of community. A person in that area would feel more alone versus if they were in a neighborhood that they felt a sense of community and felt that people are watching out for each other, willing to step in. That provides a sense of safety. When you lack that sense of community, then these statistics, these incidents that happen, they magnify that sense of being alone and being vulnerable and being unsafe.
And mental illness, of course, is a big factor.
The mental illness is a really, really sad situation that our city has been experiencing over the last decade, even more, with the close of prior institutions that used to help
Riverview.
Support people who are struggling with mental illness or who need treatment. We saw a huge influx arrive on the street. Well-intentioned sentiments about integrating individuals into the community and having them live in community and be part of community, all which is great. However, the supports were not included to make that happen. And as a result, you saw that these people didn't receive the care, and then they were taken advantage of by the predatory factors on the street, drug dealers and whatnot, and they became victims themselves. And then that itself just continued to perpetuate as funding decreased for services such as mental health. And you have individuals walking on the street right now who are not capable of taking care of themselves. They themselves are walking around in great fear because of the mental struggles that they're struggling from, and they react. And so then who are they reacting against? Generally the person that's closest to them or who they fixated on. And that creates unsafe conditions for both the people who live and work in the neighborhood and them.
And our decriminalization pilot, certainly we all saw it, led to lots of public drug use. And I would think that the experts are starting to see the safer drug supply moved away from just the person it was prescribed for and has increased the addict community.
So the open drug use, I mean, you live downtown, you've seen it. People openly using drugs in public do not appear to be individuals who are well put together. They look like they are suffering. They look like they are struggling. That visual alone contributes to that perception of being unsafe in one's neighborhood. And and having it be allowed to be open, just human nature, if something is allowed, you will be more likely to take advantage of that versus before, if some people wanted to use their illicit drugs, they would do it in a place which is more private, which is less seen. And then again, that doesn't contribute to the sort of the overt visual state of an area.
So what do you feel in terms of, as a police officer, if you make an arrest, one of the frustrations I hear is that you make the arrest, you go through all of this, and they're back out on the street. The repeat offenders.
So we have several programs now at the VPD where we specifically are focusing it on repeat offenders. We have the Revoy program right now, which is looking after property crime, repeat property crime individuals, where they don't qualify with elements of, tenor of violence. It's not domestic or intimate partner related or sexually related. So there is a program that's focusing on them and keeping them abiding to the conditions that are placed on them. We're seeing some success with that in addressing repeat offenders. But when you have repeat offenders who are mentally unwell and they can't be accountable for their actions and there's nothing in place to support them, to help them get better, then it is detrimental to them. It's detrimental to the community that they go into.
And frustrating for the police.
100% for us, because...
We're just going to take a quick break and then we'll expand on a program that Colleen is very involved in. Back in a moment. Welcome back. I mentioned earlier that Colleen Yee and her sister Alice had both started this women's safety team. How did it get started, Colleen?
It was really organic, actually. It was by accident, we really boil down to it. Our sex crimes unit back in 2012 held a community safety fair. They wanted to put on an information event so that women in the community knew where they could go to access resources should they ever find themselves in a situation where they were subjected to crime. They invited myself to come put on a self-defense portion. So I quickly got together with Alice and the sergeant in charge of our force options team at the time, retired Sergeant Clive Milligan, and we put together a very basic program. We said, on the day, we set up in the gym, and we had a 2 o'clock time slot, and literally thousands of women were coming through that fair that day at Trout Lake Community Center. Our doors opened at 2 for people who wanted to come in, and for a brief second, no one walked through those doors. And our heart stopped. But the next heartbeat, 60 women walked through that door. And they sat down and we gave them this sort of rudimentary info session about how to protect yourself should you find yourself at the receiving end of violence. And at the end of that 30-minute presentation, women came up to us and asked where they could learn more.
So how many women have now gone through the program?
We just completed our 10-year anniversary of this program in 2023, and over 10,000 women have participated.
10,000 women have personally been shown some techniques that they can use.
Concepts on how to keep themselves safe if they find themselves in situations of unavoidable violence, and information on prevention regarding their personal safety.
And the instructors are all women police officers who are volunteers. They're doing it on their day off.
They do. We have almost a team of 30. The numbers fluctuate based on what's going on in people's lives, but everyone volunteers their time. This program means so much to these members that they come in on days off. We have people who are pregnant and they come in until, they can't come in anymore at the end of a long shift. It's a program that they love wholeheartedly, and they see the results that have come out of our interaction with the women in our community.
Do you have to be a young, fit, athletic woman to to go to this course?
I've been on this job for 30 plus years. I'm in this program. So, I mean, I'm not young at all anymore, but we have women from all ranks, all different backgrounds. When the audience looks at our training team, there is someone there that they can identify with. So not everyone is like a tactical, training 6 days a week kind of member.
And I think you told me once that a woman in her 80s was one of the stars of the program.
Oh, our participants range from 16, and our record holder is 92.
92.
92. She came to a workshop last year. But one of our most memorable was a woman in her 80s, and it was the first time she ever gave herself permission to protect herself. And during the practical portion, I remember looking over and one of my instructors was pulling her off her partner because she was just so enthusiastic.
So what is the essence? You can't show all of the things that you do in the class because a lot of them are quite physical. But what are the main points you want women to come away from these courses knowing?
So from our workshop, what we don't teach is tactics and techniques. We teach concepts. We want to educate people, women, where on the human body are the most vulnerable points where if we put a bit of energy, we can actually create an injury that will give us time to get away. And those points on the human body, it doesn't matter whether the attacker is bigger, stronger, faster, because that's who we train for. Those areas of the human body are vulnerable. You can't strengthen them, you can't muscle your way through because you have high pain tolerance. It is literally, we teach them how to look at the human body as a machine. And then where on that machine can we apply some energy and break that machine so we can get away?
Where are those points?
Vision, wind, and limbs. So if you think about a human body, doesn't matter how hard you train, you can't make your eyes stronger. And all of us have had at some point been accidentally poked in the eye or got something in our eye, and you can imagine or remember how distracting that is or how painful that is. Wind, again, the front of the throat, doesn't matter how big you are, how much muscle mass you have, you can't build muscle to cover this part of your anatomy. And this is extremely vulnerable. And then limbs, joints, fingers, elbows, knees, ankles, those can't bear a lot of impact force or weight. And so when we teach women how to use their body weight and a little momentum directed at these areas, it is a very successful outcome for individuals to have an opportunity to get away.
And of course, the big message you talk about is preventative.
Always,
awareness.
Always, always. The cornerstone to personal safety, threefold. Situational awareness, which gives you time to assess your environment so that you're able to avoid the danger or make a plan to deal with it. And the third one is your intuition. Always, always trust your intuition. If something is telling you that something's not right, you're physically responding in that way that gives you that sense of unease, trust that. Do what you feel you need to make that feeling go away, whether it's to move to a place of safety or go join, somebody so that there's strength in numbers. But those three things, situational awareness, avoidance, and intuition. It's the triangle of your personal safety.
And like, you really mean it. You keep saying, are you watching on this side? Are you looking this way? Are you keeping an eye who's coming from behind? Like, it really is a work.
It's a skill that can become automatic over time. In the beginning, if you are not used to it, absolutely, it feels like a lot of work. But I made it a game with my children when they were growing up where I didn't want them to be hypervigilant and full of anxiety moving about their environment. But I needed them to be situationally aware and know if anything untoward ever enters it. So we just made it a game. So in the beginning, you make it a game. When I walk out these doors, how many cars do I see parked on the street? How many people do I see? And I just make count of it. And as it becomes more natural to do that, I'll add more detail. And that's how I did it with the kids. And now they're 17, and we can't drive anywhere without them pointing something out to me for them to show me how smart they think they are. But over time, it becomes natural. In policing, for many of us, like everyone else, in the beginning it was work. But over time, because it's a necessity for our job and for our safety, it comes naturally.
One of the slides you showed during the presentation was really striking. And it was a woman walking along the street. And she was kind of, obviously sort of depressed, I guess. But this was just a shot you took on the street. What were you trying to say about how we present ourselves?
Body language is incredibly important in what we are communicating to whoever is in our environment that may be watching us. So
somebody's looking for a victim.
nothing ever happens by chance, especially when it comes to interpersonal violence. Those individuals who want to commit the violence are looking. And with every person they look at, they make an assessment. Is this someone that I can overcome easily? Are they paying attention? Do I feel that they are capable of taking care of themselves? Will they detect me before I can use the element of surprise to my advantage? So how we carry ourselves communicates a lot. Are we confident? Are we aware of our situation? Do we have a destination that we're going to? Do we look like we would be able to take care of ourselves?
And you found that, you said, by interviewing so many of these people who've committed these crimes and saying, why did you do it? What were you looking for?
And what they look for is very similar to what predators in the wild look for. They are looking for an easy target, someone that they can overcome easily by surprise or by brute strength. Does that person look weak in the sense that they're smaller stature, they injured, are they young, are they old, are they paying attention?
And so where you can actually find more information is through the course. How do people apply?
So our program is offered to the community free of charge all throughout the city. So if you go to the Vancouver Police Department website, on that website, I believe if it's still set up the way it has been in the past, our logo, you'll see it on the page.
So look for the logo, Women's Safety, and it is free of charge, and women of any age are welcome. Thank you, Colleen. I really appreciate your being here.
Thank you for having me.
We'll be back in just a moment. Keeping a community safe has to be a team effort. Government has a public policy role to play. Police must have the tools that allow them to deal with unacceptable or threatening disorder. Firefighters, paramedics, social workers need the funding and support services to make this system work. And importantly, we too have a role to play in supporting these efforts and consciously being aware of our surroundings. Let me know your thoughts on our YouTube channel. Till next time, I'm Carole Taylor.